Okay, let's unpack this. The voyage of Vasco da Gama. I mean, this wasn't just a trip, was it?
No, not at all. It was a desperate, incredibly high-stakes gamble that basically changed the entire world economy.
Right. And our mission today is to dive into how this relatively small country, Portugal, pulled off one of the most dangerous missions in history.
And the risk, it directly matched the reward.
Yeah.
The goal was pretty straightforward on paper. Find a sea route from Europe to India by going all the way around Africa.
But you have to remember why that was so critical back in 1497. It really came down to two things: money and power.
Exactly. Spices.
Yeah, we hear spices and think of a kitchen cabinet. But back then, things like pepper, cinnamon, cloves, they were like gold.
Sometimes even more valuable than gold.
Hmm.
They were crucial for medicine, but the big one was preserving food. Before refrigeration, you needed spices to keep meat from going bad, or at least to mask the taste when it did.
So by the time those spices got to Europe, overland, through the Middle East, the price was just astronomical.
Oh yeah, it could be inflated by like 1,000%. Portugal wanted to cut out all those middlemen and just grab that profit for themselves.
And there was this other almost mythical goal too, right? The search for Prester John.
Right, this rumored Christian king in the East. The hope was to form an alliance with him. So it was, a mix of commerce and a kind of crusade.
So into this whole situation steps Vasco da Gama.
Yep. Born around 1460, his father was a knight and explorer himself, and da Gama had serious training. He studied navigation, the stars, and got real sea experience off the coast of West Africa.
King Manuel I picked him because so many others had already tried and failed to make this journey.
And what really stands out is his personality. He was known for being incredibly brave, a brilliant navigator, but also really, really stern.
He demanded total obedience, no arguments.
And as we'll see, you probably needed that kind of iron will to survive what they were about to face. It was a multi-year trip into the complete unknown.
So how do you even begin to prepare for something like that? The logistics must have been insane.
They were. He had a custom-designed fleet of 4 ships, built tough, specifically for the rough Atlantic.
Okay, so 4 ships, what were they?
You had the flagship, the Sao Gabriel, that's where da Gama was, then the Sao Rafael, the Barrio, and a smaller storage ship just packed with supplies.
And the crew. How many men?
Only about 170 in total.
That's it. That seems so small.
It is. And it was a mix of experienced sailors, soldiers, and, interestingly, a number of convicted prisoners.
Prisoners? Why would you bring prisoners on a mission like this?
Well, they were used for the most dangerous tasks. If you needed someone to go ashore first into a potentially hostile place,
Yeah.
you'd send a prisoner.
Yeah.
They were basically disposable.
That's brutal. And they were armed to the teeth, right? Heavy cannons on board.
Oh, absolutely. This is not a purely scientific mission. They were ready to fight.
And what were they eating for months on end?
Dried meat, beans, hard biscuits, salted fish. That's about it. The psychological grind of that alone is hard to imagine.
And that grind starts the second they leave Lisbon in July 1497. They head south, and then da Gama makes his first brilliant but terrifying decision.
This is where his genius as a navigator really shows. Most sailors would just hug the African coast.
Right, stay where you can see land.
But da Gama knew the winds near the coast were unreliable. So he did something crazy. He sailed far out, west, deep into the open Atlantic to catch the strong, reliable winds of the South Atlantic Gyre.
So they were completely out of sight of land. For how long?
For nearly 90 days straight.
3 months.
3 months. Nothing but water. Just relying on the stars and math to know where you are. Think of the mental toll on that crew. They must have thought they were lost forever.
It's amazing there wasn't a mutiny.
Well, that's where his stern leadership comes in. He held them together. Eventually, they swung back east and finally hit the Cape of Good Hope.
Which had been discovered before, but rounding it was still a nightmare.
An absolute nightmare. The records describe massive waves, horrible storms, winds just hammering the ships. The crew was exhausted, terrified.
But they made it. They got around the continent and into the Indian Ocean. But a new killer was waiting for them there.
Yeah, the one that got more sailors than anything else. Scurvy.
The sailor's plague. And for people who don't know, what exactly is scurvy?
It's actually really simple. It's just a severe lack of vitamin C, which you get from fresh fruits and vegetables.
But they had no idea that's what caused it back then.
None. To them, it was just this mysterious, horrifying disease.
And the symptoms are just awful. Swollen gums, your teeth literally fall out, you become incredibly weak.
At one point, so many of his men were sick, they could barely even sail the ships. It was a crisis. Da Gama had to find land fast.
So he stops along the coast of East Africa.
Exactly. They managed to find fresh food, including oranges. And those oranges, full of vitamin C, started to help the men recover. But for many, it was already too late.
After they recovered a bit, they sailed north up the East African coast, visiting trading ports like Mozambique and Mombasa.
And this is where the whole dynamic changes. They're no longer in unknown territory. They're entering this ancient, sophisticated trading network, dominated by Arab merchants.
And the reception wasn't exactly friendly.
Not at all. There were immediate tensions over religion, culture, and especially trade. In Mombasa, it nearly turned into an all-out fight. The Portuguese were seen as crude, violent outsiders.
But then their luck changes in a place called Malindi.
It does. The ruler there was friendly, and crucially, Da Gama managed to hire a highly skilled local guide. This guide was the key to everything.
Why was this so important?
Because he understood the monsoon winds. These are predictable, seasonal winds that you absolutely need to know how to use to cross the Indian Ocean. Without that local knowledge, they could have been stranded for months.
So let's contrast the travel times. 90 days of agony in the Atlantic. Now, with the guide and the monsoons.
The crossing of the massive Indian Ocean took just 23 days.
23. That's incredible.
It's all thanks to that local expertise. And on May 20, 1498, they drop anchor off the coast of Calicut, India. They'd done it.
The crew must have been ecstatic. After almost a year, they'd finally made it.
It was a historic moment, but the celebration didn't last long.
Da Gama goes to meet the local ruler, the Zamarin. And the meeting, it doesn't go well.
It's a disaster. The Zamarin is this powerful, wealthy king used to dealing in silks and gold, and the gifts Da Gama brought, things like cloth hats and jars of honey, were just seen as pathetic, insulting even.
So right away, they look like amateurs.
Exactly. And the Arab merchants, who already controlled the trade there, immediately saw the Portuguese as a threat. They started telling the Zamarin that these guys were just pirates.
Which made any kind of trade deal impossible.
Completely. Da Gama gets frustrated and leaves after only a few months. The exploration was a success, but the business mission was, so far, a total failure.
And then somehow the journey home was even worse.
Catastrophically worse. Da Gama made a huge mistake. He ignored all the local advice about the monsoons and tried to sail back against the winds.
And what did that mistake cost them?
It stretched that 23-day crossing into 132 days.
Over 4 months at sea.
4 months. Scurvy came back with a vengeance. They ran out of food and water. The death toll was staggering.
It got so bad they had to abandon one of the ships, right?
They did. So many men had died or were too sick to work that they couldn't man all the vessels. They had to burn the Sao Rafael because they simply didn't have enough healthy crew left to sail it.
Just incredible. So the last 2 ships finally limped back to Lisbon in September 1499.
Battered, broken, with less than a third of the original crew still alive.
But despite all that death and failure, he's treated as a hero.
A national hero.
Yeah.
Because he had done the one thing that mattered. He found the route.
And he brought back proof it was worth it.
Exactly. Even the tiny amount of spices he managed to bring home sold for a massive profit. That was the proof of concept. The route was viable.
And the king rewarded him handsomely. A title, money. Portugal was now poised to become a global superpower.
But this is where the story takes a much darker turn. When Da Gama went back on his second voyage in 1502, it wasn't a small fleet of explorers.
What was it?
It was a fleet of 20 warships.
20. So this wasn't about trade anymore.
This was about conquest. He used brute force, attacked ships, and bombarded cities to seize control of the spice trade for Portugal.
And he did go back one last time, didn't he?
Yeah, in 1524 as a governor, basically to clean up the colonies. But he got sick shortly after arriving and died there on Christmas Eve.
So when you step back and look at the whole thing, what's the real legacy?
It's the moment the world map really gets redrawn. Portugal builds this massive trading empire, and it kicks off centuries of European dominance of the seas.
But it also brought immense conflict. The arrival of the Portuguese meant the loss of independence for so many local kingdoms.
That's the key takeaway. Da Gama's voyage didn't just find a trade route. It fundamentally and permanently changed how Europe and Asia interacted, connecting them by sea.
It's just such a paradox. A voyage that started as a commercial mission, to find a cheaper way to buy pepper, ended up launching an era of global empire and conflict. Just think about the massive unintended consequences of that one gamble.
Good luck with your studies.